Welcome to Lynn's Warriors. Today we're talking about one of the biggest challenges facing parents, educators, and kids, how technology and social media are affecting our children, and what we can actually do about it. Warning, we're going to be talking about youth mental health, but here on the Warriors, it's about reality, it's about truths, and what can make your family safe. So I am honored to welcome Dr. Lisa Strohman. Oh, her credits are beyond. I mean, a clinical psychologist, attorney, public speaker, author. I'm exhausted already. And mom, the most important job in the world, and a leading voice on technology, mental health, and the impact of the digital world on young people. The website is digitalcitizenacademy.org. Dr. Lisa, I will have all of your socials in the body of this video because you are all over the place, and you generously sent me a QR code, which will be your two books. So I can share that for everybody for some free downloads. Resources are always important, but let's jump right in. I want to hear your voice. So welcome, Dr. Lisa Strohman, to the Warriors.
Thank you, Lynn. I'm so excited to be here. I've been following you for years, and I love all of the work you've been doing.
Thank you. That means the most to me. I want to start with something, though. Totally, what do you want to share about yourself? It can be anything about your childhood, your story, anything at all. Who is Dr. Lisa Strohman?
Wow, big question. I actually grew up in, I grew up in a situation where I didn't really have great oversight or parenting. I had a grandmother that was very, very critical to my life. And literally when I was 7 or 8 years old, my parents, through the divorce, I ended up getting a video game, an Atari, if anybody remembers that, had 4 colors, and literally didn't put it down until I beat the game with every single point I possibly could. And my grandmother patiently watched me, brought me into the room. And I talk about this in my first TED Talk about empowering children outside of technology addiction. And I literally had a conversation with my grandmother at that time. And she said, both of your parents are addicts, and this behavior identifies you as someone who probably has that potential. And so I never touched another video game. I've never touched a drug in my life. I seriously took that and knew that when I started to see what was happening in our communities with laptops and computers evolving into these devices that were portable for kids, that somebody had to speak up for them because they didn't have a Grandma Drake like I did. So I've been in this fight from the very beginning.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Thank goodness for your grandmother, right?
Yes.
To have that kind of figure in your life, because a lot of kids don't, and they just repeat the cycles. You're an OG. You started this, I think I can say it, 99, when nobody was talking about any of these issues at all. What did you encounter back then? They just didn't pay attention? Nobody was listening? They didn't care? Let's go back just a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. Where I was in '99, I had just come off of a stint working in Congress. I thought I wanted to go into policy work after my undergrad at UC Davis. I had gone into the JD PhD program and was invited and accepted into the HIP, or Honors Internship Program, for the FBI. And so I was in Quantico in the profiling unit. I did a really good job working on my assigned case was homicidal pedophilia, which was awful and terrifying. My dad was in law enforcement, so it wasn't unusual to me. He did a lot of the forensic labs in California, and I had been to the FBI with him as a child. But when I was there, I happened to gain the respect of the director at the time, Louis Free. He invited me alongside of NCMEC, or the National Center of Missing Exploited Children, to sponsor my dissertation on infant abduction. So 0 to 1 years of age. Babies were starting to be stolen in ways that were different than they had, because we'd passed all these laws in the hospitals, locking down babies. And so now all of a sudden they started getting abducted out of parking lots. Ads were going out. This is really before social media. There was very rudimentary. Back then it was like Prodigy Net and CompuServe and MySpace back in the day. And so I was there working on my dissertation, and Columbine happened. And I was just really fortunate to be kind of in the right place at the right time as a student, sitting alongside the profilers. My best friend in the unit was Jean Rugala, who was the workplace, school place violence expert. And he kind of took me along and brought me into all of those meetings. And I was able to see that even in '99, when Columbine occurred, Eric Harris, who was the instigator of that tragedy, had posted online banker boxes full of content and data, and we had history. And I remembered I'm in my early 20s, and I remember looking around the room and thinking, all of these minds in our world miss this, and the children are going to use this technology differently than we ever expected. And so that's when it started for me. And I shifted my entire focus of being a guardian ad litem to the intersection of technology and psychology. And I've been fighting and talking about this ever since.
Well, I don't even know where to go with all that information you just shared. Except you were barely Columbine, a little bit older than those kids in high school. Basically, there wasn't that much of an age difference. How, as a young person, could you I'm not kidding, Dr. Lisa, like how could you withstand mentally? Was it the drive to correct all of this, to spread awareness? Because how did your young mind talk about mental, everything? This is a very heavy for a young person.
I think, honestly, when I was at the Bureau, I had started getting really intense night terrors. I had really an impact of like working in the field of like the homicidal pedophilia and all of those things. But I have this drive in me, and it's been since I was a little kid. I think when I was in fourth grade, I decided I was never going to get anything less than an A in my academics, and that I could prove myself in ways. And a lot of that comes with trauma. And for your audience that may not know, in psychology, like when children go through significant amounts of trauma, there's something called an ACE score, adverse childhood experiences. And scientifically, when we look at that, a child that has something over a 3 or a 4 typically doesn't have the ability to escape that environment. They've been exposed to too much. My ACE score was 9. And I had to do a lot of work and a lot of, I think, soul searching and understanding. And it gives me the capacity to minister forward the things that I got through. And so I think what it taught me is that my wounds never defined me, but they were used for that ability to carry it forward to other children. And so it gave me this power, and it gives me this power continuing today, to think beyond a normal scope and be able to use that pain and experience to be able to go out and shield and protect those that don't have that within. So I really do attest a lot of it to God, obviously, but also because of the experiences and being able to like get through that and want to help others.
Yeah, I'm going to add, I think you were a chosen one. You're some sort of angel that was empowered to give voice to those who don't have a voice. That's as you're talking, this is the way I look at all of this. So let's fast forward now, 27 years later from 99. Another broad statement, but what's happening to kids today online? There's so much happening. How do you want to start with that one?
I think that what I would like to start with is that the children are the innocents in this. And I think that what we have failed to see is that an industry that is $1 trillion industry came forth and had protections really way back in the day, back in the Prodigy Net, CompuServe Section 230 comes out. And there wasn't an evil intent at the time to do a protection so that we could expand our abilities. But you have this just vulnerable population that are watching us as adults, and it's seemingly that we're using technology in very effective ways. It's not harming us, but we also fail to understand that children have developing brains, and they have developmental milestones, and they have all of these vulnerabilities that the industry themselves know very well. I work on a lot of the litigation on the back end. I've seen the testimony. I've seen the documents from the whistleblowers. It was very well known at the time, and that group and that cohort of children was a massive experiment. And we have a duty and we have a necessity to right that wrong, whatever it takes, to make sure that future generations don't go through the same thing.
Yeah, we work with a lot of young people. I'm going to say 30 and under. This is my opinion, kind of born in this digital bubble. It was nobody's fault. They were just born into it. But we have a pretty massive, across America, young people coming forward, like we were used as guinea pigs. So we want to spread information. We want to talk about this with our younger siblings and just, the younger kids. We don't want what's happened to us, these experiments, especially sitting on AI now, to happen to them. Let me ask you something. Back to school time. I'm in New York City, but a lot of states already started back to school. This is the question, Dr. Lisa, I have to ask you. I'm getting it nonstop. When should I get my child a phone? Everybody else has a phone. What do you think, Lynn? Now, I have my story. I want to hear your story about phones. What do you think about this?
My story is that a phone is a tool and it isn't necessary till after middle school. I think that the organization Wait Till Eighth was on the right track way back when. But when you think about the power of a device, and I speak about it all the time, that when my kids, and I'm in Arizona, so it's kind of the Wild West out here, but when my kids were really young, I would ask, what is your gun policy and what is your technology policy? And I was more fearful of a family that had open Wi-Fi and no guardrails around the technology use of their kids than I was that there was a weapon maybe unsecured in the house, because I knew that my kids knew that that was dangerous. Our kids don't know that technology is dangerous. And particularly if you allow them to have access to it prior to them going through that hormonal shift of puberty and aging into adulthood, it creates this mass bonfire within their souls and within their minds, that really creates structural damage from a neuro development standpoint, neurochemical damage, and then emotional damage. So I think the longest that you can wait, the better. But I always tell people that, it depends on your child. But I certainly don't think that a child needs a phone or a device in their household or in their room ever.
Yeah, never in their room, but we'll get to that. But, there are phones because, again, there's parental autonomy. So it's up to the parent or guardian when they want to do it. We can always say delay is the way, right? But there's a phone where you can just text and call mom and dad or grandma. And then there's, the smartphone with internet capabilities. So at least, what do you think? Sixth, seventh grade, somebody wants to give their child a phone. What would you tell them, sixth or seventh grade, if they're going to? Because you and me can't stop them. They're going to do it, right? What would you tell these parents if they're going to give the child a phone?
I think to your acknowledgement, there are phones out there that they look just like cell phones. They act just like cell phones. They have, cameras. They have the ability to text and the ability to call. Some of them don't even have cameras, the phone light. There's a couple on the Wise phone that I know some of the folks that build those are great. The kids hate them. The kids don't like them because they want to be like every other kid. And so what I would tell your audience is, I authored a patent recently. I'm working with an organization that has 2 of their own patents on blind validation of age assurance as well as parental consent matching. And we built the provisional patent that just got accepted, is actually creating a tool for parents that they no longer will have to depend on the industry themselves. It will forever be free to parents. It was part of my agreement to come on board and build this for them. But it is something that will allow them now that if they end up having a phone, and I get it, right? Parents are divorced, like kids need to have a phone, or they have after school sports or whatever it is. But no longer should parents have to choose between the safety of their children and trusting big tech. That is ending, and that's ending on my watch.
Good, because we know we cannot trust big tech just by their history, just from the whistleblowers, internal memos fairly recently released. These brave people who worked at these companies and have come forward, really putting their lives, in my opinion, in danger, saying they knew all this was going on. So big tech, we can't trust. Parents are first line of defense. I think that's something we should share all the time. So people have to really step up. If you're going to hand a phone or a device, guardrails, discussions, certain type of phone, all of that. And again, your resources will be heavily, Dr. Lisa, in the body of this video for everybody.
And on that point, Lynn, it's unfair to parents. There was a study that came out. It got buried recently. I think one of the investigators or one of the reporters from CNN broke the story. But over 66% of those parental controls that have been issued and offered to parents are either broken, missing, or no longer there. And so my heart goes out to the parents. I've got a 17 and 18-year-old. I'm in it with everyone else. And it is unfair, even with me, who has a tech background. I'm very savvy in the area. There's 0% chance I can stay on top of everything that I would need to stay on top of in order to keep those kids safe. So I just want a shout out to the parents, why I give my books and resources away, because it is unfair. And these parents are really having issues with shame and guilt and pain when their children are hurting themselves, or even the ultimate of when they lose their child.
I'm glad you brought that up. And I know the study, I'll list that in the body of this video as well. Also, and the big tech playbook is blame the parents. I mean, there's a broken playbook, all that blame the parents. We know everybody's overwhelmed. We know everybody's trying to juggle everything and pay their bills and take care of their kids to the best of their ability. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I do still want parents realizing that, but also still they got to have some responsibility, because I know a lot of parents, Dr. Lisa, and they're like, yeah, I handed my 12-year-old, they just wouldn't do that when I talk, because we go around, we're in 28 schools, we go around, we talk, we do webinars the night before, so the parents understand what we'll be talking about, which is digital safety, then leading into the sextortion and trafficking and all that. But yeah, everybody's got to come together on this, but I'm glad you brought that up, because big tech is not going to help us. I'm going to leave it at that. Let's talk to some parents out there. Children, what are some warning signs that you want to share with us, just going on today with children and their mental health, and changes that we have to be made aware of? Because, we have blinders on, a lot of people, when it comes to our own kids, or we don't want to acknowledge, again, that not my child. Share a little bit about that so we can educate everybody about some warning signs.
Sure. You have to, as you know, going into the schools, you have to start earlier than you think that you need to. I would say some of the warning signs I see in kids is where they start to get emotional, irritable, they pull away from friend groups, or they pull away from sports. Parents should know the average age a child is first exposed to pornography is 7 in the United States. And the reason that is because our core curriculum in second grade assigns them a research project, and they have Google accounts, or they have Microsoft accounts, and they go out onto the internet, and the porn industry knows that. And I work very closely with Nkosi and all of the folks. They know that there's ad bundling that does that. So when you start to see a personality shift in a child, I think what we used to, as parents, believe was, oh, it's developmentally normal. The friend group, those kids are just not nice kids, or these are sporting kids and my kid's not a sporting kid. I really think that parents need to actually take a second look at when persona changes, personality changes, because it really does become the very first line of defense. And children don't have the language to talk about it. So as a parent, if you are actually assumptive in your conversations, when was the first time that you were exposed or somebody showed you something inappropriate online? Instead of saying, have you been exposed, right? That's a different conversation. So I think that it's training the parents, as you know, what are those things that we can say to our children that assumes and pulls away any sense of guilt or fear in having that conversation with us. Because when children start to change their emotional state, start to sit in their room more, they start to pull away, they start to not want to hang out with the family, games aren't fun anymore, or hanging out with mom and dad isn't as fun as going in their room. Something is changing there, something has happened with them, and we have to have that conversation.
Explain to us, well, let me ask you this first. I always say no devices in the bedrooms at all. What's your feeling on all of that?
Totally agree. I don't even think that adults should have televisions or devices in the bedrooms. A lot of kids want their phones in their room because it's a great alarm. I said, I'll buy you your own alarm. At one point in my private practice, I had a box of alarms from Target, and I would just pull it out and hand it to them. And I would say, here you go, here's your alarm. There's a lot of reasons that they want it. And it's all for reasons that are going to hurt their sleep cycle. It's going to hurt their circadian rhythm. It's going to hurt their emotional well-being. And that demand on them from a psychological perspective who are untrained to handle the amount of stress and content that's coming into them is really best facilitated behind closed doors. So that's why, my rule, not in the bedroom, not in the bathroom, those are kind of the two main areas where kids are targeted, is one that you should really foster really early as much as you possibly can, and sit down with your child and explain the why. Because when they understand the brain damage and they understand what's happening inside of themselves, oftentimes they will make that choice with you, which is always better than forcing it from above.
Yeah, that leads me into, and kids need their rest. They're tired. Teachers are reporting they're falling asleep on top of their desks. They can't focus. So kids need to go to sleep at night. What does a healthy family, digital kind of partnership look like to you? Look, everybody's got devices. We're pro technology, pro innovation. We're not saying ban anything, but we have to deal with healthy guardrails, healthy discussion, communication. What does it look like in a home, a healthy digital partnership, family partnership?
Well, hopefully, if they go to the point where they download the first book, Technology, the Unplugged book, there's like a whole log in there, but how to do a first assessment. So I always tell families in the first part, make sure you assess your own use. So, particularly if you have an iPhone, but on Google, you have the same ability to go in and look at, like, how often are you online? How many hours are you on? We do that as a family, like every Friday. What was your average
Oh,
use? How are you doing that? And own it as a parent, own it as an adult, like that we're using it, and we can go through and we can say, well, here's where I'm using that. I'm constantly on my phone for meetings or Zoom or whatever the things are. I can go through and we can talk about tech as a tool, not as a toy, and look at how we can manage that. Because I'm with you, we have to be able to teach the kids. We started building about 3 years ago our AI fundamentals course because I saw what the Chinese Communist Party was doing. They were going to launch it in 2025. So if I can ever be a resource for you on that, we can talk offline.
yes.
But we have a K through 12 program where we're teaching kids specifically what algorithms are in kindergarten, and then what an algorithm is in fourth grade, and it developmentally grows with them so that they can understand how it interacts with their brains and iterates with the rest of the world. So that healthy digital plan for a family is, we own what we're doing. We have those protective areas. We don't bring our devices out during meal times. We don't sit on our phone when somebody's trying to have a conversation with us. Just like etiquette, we used to call it just phone etiquette back in the day. And that's still important to do as a family. And like I said, I'm happy to give free resources to anybody who wants them on that kind of stuff.
Wow. True or false? There is social media addiction.
True.
Explain what that means to our warriors.
So from a clinical perspective, if we're going to go after the DSM, so the Diagnostic Statistical Manual is kind of the Bible of psychology, psychiatry, and it's where you get a diagnosis. Mm-hmm. And it's important to understand what that book does. That book was created and generated to just create a band of diagnoses so that we can understand what's happening better. We've changed it over the years. It's evolved over the years, but predominantly that book is really the number one provider manual for insurance companies. And insurance companies use those diagnostic claims in order to validate whether or not you're going to get your insurance paid for or not, which is a ridiculous system. And it's absolutely one that I've never participated in, because I don't think a child should have a diagnosis or a label to live up to. I think that we should talk about the symptoms and we should talk about what's happening to them. So if you're a purist and you say, well, there's only gambling addiction or behavioral addictions in the DSM, I would say that you're accurate on that. Problematic internet use was manufactured and is nomenclature from the tech industry, who was trying to create a better way to communicate without making it seem so bad. But if you're talking about the actual reality of addiction, it potentiates in the brain the exact same way heroin does. And if you see some of the videos and some of the problems I have seen with families, whereby doors are being kicked in, families are being, in some cases, children are murdering parents to get to their information. It is far more difficult to reverse that process addiction than it is a drug addiction, because now you've got a system that the entire global community uses, and we have made it okay for kids. So is there a social media addiction or an internet addiction? 1000% yes.
Wow. Let me ask you about. I'm going to start. I just have to go back about something. Sorry, I jump all over a little bit. It's the beginning of the school year, and we've got bell to bell in some of the states, and we've got phones are not allowed in the classroom. They're allowed in the hallway, the cafeteria. We've got all kinds of things. Edtech going on. Any thoughts on this Edtech that's happening? Because a lot of teachers are telling me. I was just part of a meeting actually, 200 teachers, and a lot of them now are just balancing, the charts of kids with iReady programs and things of that nature. Let's talk about that and then get into your academy a little bit and see. I'm broadly throwing everything at you.
Yeah, I love it.
I know, but I can talk to you for 5 hours. That's the problem. Let's talk about that a little bit, because the teachers are like, we want to teach.
Mhm.
And of course they're being, do it this way. These are their jobs, their livelihood, right? So they're very much frustrated right now about all of this. But jump in. What do you want to say about all of this?
I would say teachers are angels walking our earth. I during COVID, I shut everything down and I gave free therapy to teachers because they were just dying on these Zooms and unprepared and unwilling. And we lost a massive cohort of teachers post COVID that was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. You're forcing me to go on and try to figure out Edtech inside a classroom instead of having that one-on-one relationship with a teacher and showing up for the child. And that's why teachers go to school. They want to show up and they want to educate children, and they want to have that part in that developmental space of a child and a teacher is oftentimes the safest place for a child to be. And so when you force them into these technologies and using these things in the classroom, it creates a layer, just like it does for anyone else, that takes away that very special bond and relationship. So I think that we have a lot of teachers that are frustrated because they're no longer able to have that authentic teacher-child relationship that children desperately need, but teachers desperately need. And so my advocacy is, I'm not naive enough to think that we can't have any technology in schools, but I think that we need to really go back and look at the science behind when Edtech was starting to be brought into our educational system in the United States, and look at the test scores. And for the first time in our entire history, testing and academic achievement is starting to decline ever. And so if we can go back into the system where we have maybe a computer lab or a place where we focus very intently on learning AI, learning the computers, understanding that technology and digital citizenry and all of the things that we all talk about, but we go back to our educational system of actually having those conversations in real time with kids, I think that education has to make that massive shift back. And I think that it's going to be fought every step of the way. And I don't know how to fix it except to see it coming and try to help the teachers and support them any way I possibly can.
Yeah, and we at the Warriors, we work on a lot of policy. For instance, the state of Pennsylvania, their governor Josh Shapiro announced recently, we're going to get back to textbooks, no Chromebooks in classrooms, 2027. Pencil to paper. So that's also showing up across the United States. It doesn't get a lot of media attention. There are a lot of parents that started this pencil to paper, like, we're not using the Chromebook. Like, you have to give us the textbook and the paper. So we have a lot of parents underneath starting these movements, grouping up and going in. And I think that's a good thing as well. So at least, Dr. Lisa, the pendulum, in my opinion, is slightly starting to swing back to how I went to school.
And how I went to school, right?
I don't know. You're so young, but I don't know. We couldn't even have a calculator. I remember calculators came out, and that was the big thing in my school. Like, could you have a calculator in math class? Or no, there was such a discussion and all this, but calculator. Something that I've been really focusing on lately, I didn't realize until the last few years, the extent of the cyberbullying going on. And it seems to me, Dr. Lisa, like it's increasing. What can you share with us about all of this?
Well, it's going beyond and expanding beyond just peer-to-peer bullying. I think that,
Yeah.
historically, I mean, I was bullied as a child, and I'm sure you had your issues as a child, but we could
Still
go
getting
home.
bullied, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have a 24/7 cycle of
Yes.
it. And so the peer-to-peer bullying that happens becomes more global. It's like a social experience versus an individual experience, because then you start to get these like cohorts of the popular kids or the band kids or whatever, and then you've got factions of kids that are like joining in, and so it exacerbates that peer-to-peer bullying. But the one that I find most damaging that I see starting to happen are the calculated and very organized bullying factions that are out there, the 764,
Yes.
those industry type bullying that are monetizing off of it, quite frankly, and going into and coming in through other countries, entering our kids through social media, and then creating the ability to extort them, exploit them, and all of those things. So bullying has like such a different connotation to me nowadays, because it's not just purely in our own communities. It can expand so much beyond that. And so it's really important to get to the kids and the families early enough to explain that and understand what it is and how it is that those things can happen.
Yeah, when you mentioned the word early, I actually think from the time a child is born, I mean, hear me out, Dr. Lisa, about this, like age appropriate, like we have to start with digital education because this is the environment we live in. So by the time they're 3 years old, whatever that takes, no stranger can touch me or something, just those basics and keep going from there. Because when we started the Warriors, we started with high school education. And then I realized, oh no, we have to move into middle school. Now I'm looking at third and fourth grades, age appropriate information, because parents will say to me, we don't use technology in our home. We limit it. We do everything right. I said, yes, but they take the school bus. And many school buses, I don't know where in Arizona where you are, but here in New York are wired for Wi-Fi. And I'm like, so their friends are showing them things. So you have to be that one that talks about everything with the kids. Let me ask you, AI, artificial intelligence. It's here. It's been here. I've been thinking for the last few years, this is going to be it. It's not going to really be too much about Facebook. This is me and Twitter and all these Snap, and it's going to be the AI. What do you want to share about that? Because this is the one thing that truly frightens me. However, there are some great positives about AI to help us with all of these problems. So what do you want to say about AI?
I think the reality is AI really took off in 2012. And if you look at kind of the neural networks and you look at some of the labs out of Stanford and Harvard and some of the things that they started to do at that time, that's really when it exploded and they started doing.
Really?
So it goes way back. And honestly, I'll plug Andrew Huberman's podcast. He does a really great, he had one with an individual, it's going to escape my name right now, but she was talking about the development of AI and how, again, neural networks were developed and how it happened. But AI is terrifying to me in many ways because I see the adults really kind of jumping in and not understanding that it's only a part of the answer, and that when you're going out and asking a global AI, you're providing a lot of content to it, but you're also not demanding things of AI in the right ways without education. So if you're asking a question of like, who is the most prolific warrior of all time, it's quite possible that AI might come back with Stalin or Hitler or, some of these like really heinous like leaders in our war histories, because it doesn't have a way to differentiate on an emotional base. And so we're building the plane as we go. And if we don't explain that and understand that really carefully, that there's good content and bad content, but AI doesn't differentiate. That's the part that I think that we're kind of in the mass right now. And we have to be really critically careful to be able to understand that and put in technologies that can protect our children from the things that they don't know or they haven't been educated on.
Yeah. And also, I always think about when they give a product for free. It seems like in the masses, this Chat GPT was just unleashed a couple of years ago and everybody loved it and media was all over it, and free, and all this stuff is free. Remember, you're the product. There's nothing free. Right. They kind of addict everybody. My words, not yours, and then they start with their charging and this and that. So it is something everybody should be very aware of right now. AI, talk to their kids about. if what do you want to tell parents right now? If you could tell them one thing, because here's the thing, they say, Lynn, it's so much, I can't comprehend it. It's too confusing. It's pornography, it's AI, it's chatbots, it's this, it's that. What would you tell one or two things right now to a parent listening or watching you want them to take action on? Because I'm always like, take one action a day and then you've done your job and just keep going. What do you want to say?
I would tell parents that it's okay to say no and to be a parent, not a friend in today's society. I think a lot of times parents get beaten down. And I think when I go out to schools, you go out to schools, the parents that show up are the parents that already want to help. The parents that aren't showing up are the ones that are already hopeless. And they've already learned that that we can't fight against this. And I would say to a parent, it is exhausting, but we're here and we're helping you. Check back. Your podcast is so incredibly valuable. I'm happy to provide and work with you however I can to get out tools. I think that we can come around and give parents back a voice. And I don't think we have to, I think policy is important. I think legislature is important. I don't think they're going to do it fast enough. And I think that particularly with the injuries and the things that are happening through AI and the recruitment that's happening to our young children, people like you and I and others have to come together and really be willing to put everything aside and say, all right, how do we do this the most efficient way? And parents, ask for it, ask for help. You can download the books, but if you're not reading them, then it's not going to help you. I answer every single email personally. And sometimes I'm up until 3 or 4 in the morning, but it doesn't matter. If I'm helping a family or a child, I'm here for it. So those children and those families that you help, go out and help others. And so that, I know that. And again, don't give up. Be the parent and know that you don't have to agree to everything. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it and say no.
I love that. And I always say, let kids be bored. They'll find a way out of that after the screaming and the kicking. And listen, again, this is not judging parents at all. Parents are tired. Mm-hmm. So I constantly see when I'm on airplanes, there's always a child, Dr. Lisa, on an iPad.
Yeah.
And that could be, my 5.5-hour flight to California. And the child's on the iPad the entire time. And I always feel like I want to say something and I don't. But
I used to have cards.
To anybody.
Yeah, I used to have business cards that I printed stats on when I was at the FBI. And on the back of it would be, did you realize that there's 1.3 million predators online at every given moment? Did you realize that they have access to your child? And then someone got word that I was going to start handing those out. And they're like, I don't think that's a good idea. But it was way back in the early 2000s. I was like, they need to know this, like the stats that are out there. So your work, my work, the people that you associate with, I think if we amplify and tell parents, we're here and we're going to help you and we're going to get there faster than you think, because we're at a tipping point and we're winning at that tipping point. And so it's just having the right people at the right place right now.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. And I've seen a lot of change just in the last year. I'm seeing tremendous, the American public pushing back against AI, not accepting it, more parents coming to the table about all this social media and the harms caused, all kinds of things going on. And I like the idea of, well, actually, I'm going to add you as a resource on our website. So I hope you agree to that. I'm putting you on the spot in front of everybody, but that's okay.
I would love that.
But also, people have to realize, Dr. Lisa, they don't realize there's a lot of great free resources, free material. Have a game plan. I don't care, on the magnet on the side of your refrigerator, in the drawer somewhere. I don't, with some phone numbers, with some, when you're in an emotional state or something, you can pull it out. It sounds a little old fashioned, like a cheat sheet or something, and do it. I used to say sometimes, even have it on your phone, but I'm getting away from that. I want you to have a cheat sheet, an old piece of paper, that you can have these resources. There's a lot of great resources and people like you and me. And I totally agree. Our hashtag at the Warriors is community, creates change, because even though we fight for legislation, all of this stuff, they are way behind. And the red tape and the infighting, it's about the actual work, like you're doing, like I'm doing, like we have a lot of great people, right, doing it. And this is what I like to say, snowballs. And I like what you said when you said somebody will take the information, work with it, and then teach somebody else. Yeah. You must have read my playbook, because I'm a great, I'm like, it snowballs if we keep going. Well, final words, what would you like to leave us with? Anything? There's so much more. Promise me you'll come back, because we do have ongoing issues we have to keep focusing in as things are changing, it seems to me, on a daily basis with all of this.
Oh, I would love to. I even coming back and talking about the seniors and the exploitation that's happening there, with voice cloning and all of
Oh
those
my
things. So
goodness.
yeah, I think that we're kind of in the sandwich generation as parents, because we have elderly parents and young children, and we're trying to figure it out together. My parting words would be: love yourself, trust yourself, know that you're doing the right thing for your kids. And there's going to be days that you feel like that it's insurmountable, but there's all of us out there. Lean on us, ask us for help. We're here to help everyone. So those would be my last words to
Yeah,
families.
there's a lot of help out there. Well, Dr. Lisa, thank you for joining us today here in the Warriors. I can't wait to share this information. I want everybody to share the video. We've got to talk about mental health. We got to open up about everything, communication. We got to talk to our kids. We got to talk to our elderly. Got to talk to everybody. Everything's going on. Digitalcitizenacademy.org is a wonderful resource. Again, it will all be listed, Dr. Lisa, in the body of the video, so our warriors can take their time, read. They tell me they like to absorb information. So when I rattle off like social media, they tell me they don't like it because they want to take their time and like see it and then go and look. So that's why I just mentioned just the website, but you have tremendous social media. Our children, our families should not have to navigate any of this alone, this digital world alone. And we want every child protected. We want to talk openly and honestly about all of these issues. And we want to give our kids the tools and boundaries and families resources to deal with all of this. So, Dr. Lisa Strohman, I am just so happy you joined me today. I'm going to hold you to it. You're going to come back. I would like to talk about, I think you posted, I think I saw it today. I think I shared it maybe about the scamming. I think maybe I saw it on LinkedIn. I saw it somewhere that you posted. It could have been Twitter, or X. But I'm like, you know what? We got to talk about that as well, because that's happening. I read my AARP. That's happening at mass scale, and they're embarrassed, like they're not coming forward and talking about it. And we have something here, the Brooklyn DA's office that we work with, and they have a whole division. They call it pig butchering. Have you heard that?
Yes.
You must have heard that term. Okay. Well, when they told me about this about 2 years ago, I didn't know because I'm focused on kids and stuff. And they said they have a tremendous amount, of people working on this 24 hours a day. And this is just in Brooklyn, New York. They said it goes. And I'm like, we got to talk about that more and get that out into the public. So that'll be, I'm gonna book you to come back. We got to do that one. Thank you so much. You're doing such a wonderful job. No, but seriously, thank you for your commitment, your dedication. None of this is easy, but certainly with all of your work, your strength, I mean, you truly are a warrior. So thank you, Dr. Lisa Strohman. We will definitely talk again soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.